In a famous quote, lead guitarist of Pink Floyd, the rock band, David Gilmour states, "It's a magical thing, the guitar. It allows you to be the whole band in one, to play the rhythm and melody, sing over the top, and as an instrument for solos, you can bend the notes, draw emotional content out of tiny movements, vibratos, and tonal things, which even you can't do with a piano." This quote sheds good light onto the modern attributes of playing guitar, but let's take a look at where it all began. The guitar is an instrument that has been molded from ancient design throughout centuries of trial advancements. Some would now say that we perfected the guitar, but up until the 1950s, we had only an acoustic design for this instrument. So unless you had a microphone, or basically, yeah, if you had a microphone, you could play at a little bit louder volume, but you couldn't really plug into anything. So with the advancement of music appreciation throughout our culture, musicians longed for a new way to be heard, and they found it through the electric guitar. I've played guitar for over 10 years, and I've done many years of research on how to maintenance my guitar, so I know quite a bit about it. I will explain to you guys the history and the application of the electric guitar by explaining the origin, the advancement, and the modern use of the electric guitar. My main point number one is the origin of the electric guitar. Since the early 17th century, we have had evidence of guitars being made. Obviously, they were not electric, but they were the first designs of the instrument that we now know of, called the guitar. This early design didn't look like what we think of as a guitar because it stemmed from medieval instruments, most like the lute, if you guys know what a lute is. And also, when they were designing the guitars, when they first found out about the guitars, most players that were playing lute that wanted to play the guitar, they would take the lute and they would fine down the neck so then that way they could only have 6 strings on there. So they basically turned the lute into a guitar. So that's a cool fact. We were stuck with this Baroque period inspired instrument for the next 200 years, which indeed led to some of the most beautiful pieces of music being played. But we needed to find ways to advance it, and that happened in 1931 when George Beauchamp and Adolf Rickenbacker produced the first ever electric guitar called the Frying Pan, and it was called the Frying Pan because it resembled a frying pan. And the thing that made this guitar electric was the magnetic pickups that were installed into the guitar. This allowed the vibrations of the metal strings to be turned into an electrical signal and brought through the guitar into an amplifier. The creation of the magnetic pickup forever changed the way guitars were made. Now that we have seen where the guitar first strummed its first notes, I will explain how the guitar advanced through society, but seemingly sculpted society as well. Advancement of the electric guitar is my second main point. After the invention of the frying pan, the guitar industry soon started booming with enthusiastic musicians who longed to get their hands on newly developed instrument. From the 30s into the 40s, the electric guitar got popularized by mainly jazz, blues, and country artists. There wasn't much more genres at the time, so that's who mainly used it. And up until the 1950s, until Elvis Presley was crowned the king with his new style that combined the country and blues. This new style, phrased rock and roll by radio DJ Alan Freed in 1951, became the new sound that everyone longed for. The 1950s also brought about some of the most iconic guitar models, such as the Gibson Les Paul and the Fender Stratocaster. By the 1960s, the electric guitar was well known worldwide as the new instrument that was bringing everyone together to appreciate new styles of music. The industry was seeing the highest sales they had ever seen. According to Steve Waxman's 1999 novel, Instruments of Desire, the Fender Guitar Company was selling 1,500 guitars per week in 1965, most of them being electric guitars. And this graph resembles the guitars sold from 1962 through 1965. So you can see in 1962, Fender sold 300,000 electric guitars. 1963 moved up to 600,000. 1964 it moved up to 1 million sales for the year. And then 1965 they had 1.5 million sales for 1 year. So within a 4-year period, it more than tripled. And As the electric guitar let musicians have new creative outlets, it consequently provided the listeners that followed this new wave of music to have a more creative outlet as well. Every time a new genre was forged out of the electric guitar's development, it seemed that a new culture was produced following the progression of these movements. The 1960s and 70s, which is my favorite music of era, was filled with new groovy, funky, and psychedelic music that spawned the creation of cultural followers such as the hippies. You guys have heard of the hippies. And the 1980s produced a whole new sound as well based on heavy electric guitar riffs. This new genre was called heavy metal, and it had many followers who grew their hair out and wore tight white pants with crazy obscene shirts. These metalheads, as they were called, are another perfect example of how the electric guitar grabbed the attention of many different types of people, and it also seemed to help start the fire for future cultures. Now that I've explained how the electric guitar progressed throughout its early and middle life, I will explain the modern use of the electric guitar. Which brings me to my next main point, number 3, modern use of the electric guitar. Along with the developing electronics that grew into music, there was many ways to make an electric guitar sound different. One of the most famous ways was to put effects through the signal, and there was a lot of different effects you could use to put through the signal to make the guitar sound different and bring on a new sound. A couple instances of this is the chorus pedal, a reverb pedal, a delay pedal, a distortion pedal, and there's plenty more, but those would usually, you'd send them through a signal and they would change the way the guitar sounded, so many people experimented with those when they first started coming out. Metallica's lead guitar player, Kirk Hammett, became infamous for using a wah-wah pedal, as they called it, during most of his solos, giving him a unique sound that can easily be recognized. With the ever-expanding world that grew with the electric guitar, guitar players started to get more intricate with their playing as well and find new ways to make noises on a guitar. One of my favorite guitar players, Steve Vai, is a great example of how the guitar can be used to make weird sounds, and most people had never heard of these sounds before, so he came out with a whole new style. He used the tremolo bar on a guitar in a new inventive way, pushing the electric guitar's capabilities to an even higher level. He made a unique style of his own, and that's truly the essence of what the electric guitar created, was a way for musicians to have their own unique styles and be much more innovative than what a traditional acoustic guitar would allow you to do. So in conclusion, I have informed you about the history and application of the electric guitar by explaining the origin, the advancement, and the modern use of the electric guitar. Some of our favorite music that we listen to, whether it be from the 1970s or from the current year, was most likely influenced by the way the electric guitar shaped music. If you want to find out more about the history and applications of the electric guitar, you can find many places to go, including museums and endless amounts of websites online. But the best way, I would say, to discover or experience the electric guitar was to pick up your own and strum the strings of time for yourself.